Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Late winter, early spring is a great time to prune your hydrangeas, but it's really important to know what type of hydrangea you have so you know whether or not you should be pruning it. There are 6 different types. So there's hydrangea paniculata, which is this big guy back here, or panicle hydrangea, that's one. Hydrangea arborescens, or smooth hydrangea, that is our native hydrangea. There's hydrangea petiolaris, which is climbing hydrangea. There's hydrangea serrata, that's mountain hydrangea. Hydrangea macrophylla, which is our big leaf hydrangea, and last but not least, hydrangea crucifolia, which is our oak leaf hydrangea. Some, like this vanilla strawberry panicle hydrangea tree, bloom on new wood, while others, like this oak leaf hydrangea, bloom on old wood. New wood bloomers include panicle hydrangeas and smooth hydrangeas, or hydrangea paniculata and hydrangea arborescens. Your old wood bloomers include your oak leaf hydrangea, your big leaf hydrangea, or macrophyllas, your mountain hydrangeas, and your climbing hydrangeas. When it comes to pruning, this is super important because old wood bloomers form their flower buds on last year's growth. So my oak leaf hydrangeas, my macrophyllas, the serratas, my climbing hydrangeas, all of those buds are ready to go. So if I go in there and start pruning things away, I'm eliminating all of those flower buds, which means I have no flowers this year. And your new bloomers, like your smooth hydrangeas and the panicle hydrangeas, those bloom on new wood, which means those flower buds haven't formed yet. So we can go in and prune those back, and I'm going to show you how to do all of that in a moment, but we can go and prune those back and we're not sacrificing any flower buds. Let's say you don't know what type of hydrangea you have. Maybe you've bought a new home and you've inherited some hydrangeas, or you've bought hydrangeas and planted them and you threw away the tags and you just aren't quite sure what you have. Your best bet is to not prune anything and just watch and see what the plant does. But there are also some cues that will help you determine what type of hydrangea you have, even when it's not in flower. Take, for example, my oak leaf hydrangea. This is a variety called ruby slippers, and oak leaves have the most beautiful exfoliating bark, so that's a pretty telltale sign that it's an oak leaf hydrangea. And they bloom on old wood, so if you get in there right now, start pruning it, late winter, early spring, you're cutting off all of those buds. So I don't prune my oak leaves at all. In my opinion, they have the least amount of maintenance of all of the hydrangeas. So I leave this guy alone and it does fine. I'll go in there and do some selective pruning if I see some dead wood, but for the most part, easy peasy. This next hydrangea also has exfoliating bark, and it also blooms on old wood, so I'm not cutting this either. This is hydrangea petiolaris, or climbing hydrangea. And one of the telltale signs that you've got a climber is that it'll form these aerial roots that will attach to fences and trees, and they won't cause it any harm. They just use it as a way to grow up. So you're not touching this either, and this one is covered in all these buds. So this was a rescue from a hardware store many years ago, and it was about this big and it looked pitiful, and I popped it in the corner against the fence, and I've just tied it to the fence so it can start forming its aerial roots and suctioning onto it. And I have a few flowers. You can see some old flower heads here. So I'm not going to prune this either. I might take off some old flowers, I might not, but it's another low maintenance one that I just let go for it, but blooms on old wood, so you're not touching this either. The next one I'm not going to prune until it leaves out and I can identify any dead growth in there is the hydrangea serrata, also called mountain hydrangea. So these are native to the mountains of Japan, which gives them better cold tolerance than your macrophyllas, which we'll talk about in a minute. So these bloom on old and new wood. So the hope is that because they're a little tougher, the flower buds that are in the terminal ends of all of these branches will flower this year. So the good thing though is it blooms on old and new wood, so even if the terminal buds don't survive, I'm going to get plenty of flowers and it'll bloom later in the year. So I'm not going to touch this either. I'm going to let it do its thing, and then I'll be able to go in and identify the dead growth once all the green has come in, and I'll cut it back then. This next one doesn't look like much, but this is a big leaf hydrangea, or hydrangea macrophylla, called Eclipse. Black leaves, fuchsia pink mophead flowers. So blooms on old and new wood. Like the others, I'm not going to touch this until it starts growing and I can actually see any dead growth, and then I'll clip that away. Now there's 2 that bloom on new wood that you can actually prune right now, and one of them is hydrangea arborescens, or smooth hydrangea. This is our native hydrangea. So we can go ahead and cut this back to about 12 inches from the ground, which I'll do in a moment. But let's go to the other one that blooms on new wood too. And last but not least is probably our most adaptable hydrangea is hydrangea paniculata, or panicle hydrangea. This is a variety called Little Lime. It's been in my garden for years, and I chose it because the limelight simply would have been too big. When I'm pruning my panicles, I'm cutting it back by 1/3, sometimes a half, depending on what I'm going for. But what I'm not going for is size control, because a panicle hydrangea that says it's going to be 6 to 8 feet on the tag is going to be 6 to 8 feet. And if that is too big for your space, you want to make sure you're picking a hydrangea that is going to be suitable in the space that you have. And the cool thing about it is there are hydrangeas bred for every growing situation: small space, containers, big estates, hedging. This also makes a great hedging plant. This one and hydrangea arborescens are great hedgers. The only hydrangeas I'm cutting back in late winter, early spring are my smooth hydrangeas and my panicle hydrangeas. For the smooths, I'm cutting them down so that they're about 12 inches above the ground, and I'm giving them a nice rounded shape. Anything really spindly looking, twiggy, I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to give this a nice shape, cutting just above a bud. Next up is my panicle hydrangea, and you can take these back by about a third. And so I'm going to take about 2.5 feet off of the top of this, and I'm also going to take away anything that's looking really weak and spindly. I don't want to encourage growth on those weak stems. I want a very strong plant, a very well-branched plant, and the key to that is pruning, and panicles need to be pruned to achieve that strength and that look. So anything crossing is out, anything spindly is out, dead, damaged, disease, that's all out. And it's going to look like I butchered it, but it's going to be fine, and it's actually going to encourage a really healthy plant. And when I'm making my cut, I'm cutting right above a bud. Now this looks pretty drastic, quite a difference compared to what it looked like when I started, but this will encourage a much stronger growth habit. And I've also opened up the inside of the plant so it's got good air circulation. And I need to go and get my handsaw because one of the back branches is growing into the fence and there's some damage in it. So I'm just going to take that out altogether, and then it'll prevent it from growing further into the fence and creating more wounds on that branch. So I'm going to go grab my saw and get after it. The last one I want to show you is probably the most shocking before and after, because it's going to look like you've just butchered the heck out of it, and there's just, I mean, how could it possibly grow after doing something like that to it? But the fact of the matter is it needs that hard cut back by a third to encourage strong branching so it can support those big blooms. This is vanilla strawberry panicle hydrangea. Been here for many years, but I cut this back hard by a third, but it's going to look like there's nothing left by the time I'm done with it. And I'm looking for crossing branches. They're out of here. Any spindly growth, it's gone. And I'm cutting above a bud. So I'm going to take it down by a third, and there's going to be very little left. And I'm also going to open up the center of it so I've got good air circulation, and it's amazing how this plant responds. See what I mean? It looks really harsh. It was an aggressive prune, but it needs that in order to develop that really strong branch structure so it can support those big blooms. So I hope this has given you an idea of when it's safe to prune and not to prune, and what you shouldn't prune at all. So you're not pruning oakleaf hydrangeas, climbing hydrangeas, macrophyllus, or the serratas. You're leaving those guys alone. But you can get in there and prune the panicles and the smooths. Matter of fact, they love it. It encourages that strong branching, which is what we want. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this helps you determine when you should and shouldn't prune your hydrangeas. And if you like the video, please, a thumbs up would be wonderful. Hit that subscribe button and that little bell, and you'll never miss a post. It is getting so windy out here. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.